I decided to become involved with the College Beyond Bars. I feel like it's been this process that's sort of been on my heart. And then I think restorative justice for me was really important, especially in light of George Floyd. And during that time, I really felt like I was sort of like this little tiny fish in this sea how am I supposed to swim against the current? Like, what am I supposed to do in this, with systemic racism? How do I even engage with that? This, I think, gave me an opportunity to say, you know what, it's a tiny step. It's one person's life, but it's meaningful. Being an educator myself, a high school math teacher, I think obviously education was my choice. But learning about the program made me understand it's not so much about tutoring. Like, I'm not there to tutor him in math. But it's my job to sort of be support, to be their cheerleader, to kind of be their sounding board, and to just help them journey and walk through that process as they go through a very long 3 to 5 year journey of trying to earn this college degree. And I think for someone who has a life sentence situation, having purpose and meaning is more important. Like, that's better than any kind of other gift that you could have. The inmate that we work with, he has a natural life sentence. He has no chance for parole. He's been in for 15 years. My role here is to be part of his story of finding restoration and redemption. That was the other word that I really felt like, God's redeeming grace, that there is still hope and worth and purpose, even despite the circumstances he might find himself. And I think for him, the hope is to be able to get an education so that he could use some of those skills to help the other inmates. He also has family outside the prison, so even just to perhaps influence his daughter or his family outside. And I think he finds joy, purpose, meaning. There's meaning for him in doing this program.
One thing that I learned from the Rethinking Incarceration course that really made an impact on me was learning about 100 years ago, there used to be public lynchings, events that were publicized on the weekend. And after they got out of church, they'd go have like a picnic, and then they'd go attend like this lynching. I look back upon that and think that that's crazy. Like, how could these Christians be doing this and thinking that this is okay in any sense? Also made me think of, people 100 years from now, if they look back in our time and looked at what I was doing, are there things that they would be thinking the same thing? Like, hey, what is this guy doing? Like, all these things are happening. So I'm involved with what's called the Partakers Empowerment Program, which is a 12-week class that's given to people who were formerly incarcerated, have been released. We call them returning citizens. Yeah, from the very beginning, our mentee said he wanted to start a business. We were trying to figure out how to help him and weren't making that much progress because we don't really, neither of us come from a business background. And the very first time I went back to Highrock, Arlington, downstairs, bumped into Joe Marcucci, who was making coffee, as he usually does. And because he was involved in Partakers, we started chatting, and he didn't know anything about what was going on with our mentee. So I told him that, our guy wants to start a business, but we just don't have any expertise in it. And Joe starts talking about this completely independently. He's been forming this new organization with people with different expertise in business and legal, specifically to provide support and advice for under-resourced, under-represented businesses. And it seemed like a perfect fit. For me, that was like a God moment that only God could orchestrate, something that independently. Some of the people who are involved in that have given advice, business advice, as well as legal advice to our mentee to help support and try to get his business off the ground. these issues are just like seem so big, but yet so important that maybe it's okay to just kind of jump in even a little bit, and it just seems too important to kind of not do anything about.
For others, it may not necessarily be this path, but there are other paths that I think everyone can take and maybe ask God to say, okay, so what is one small step that I can take? And I think having a movement involves lots of people doing all small things all at once and all the time. So that's my encouragement.